take the class of part 1. He has probably taken one class already, but last week there were holidays on Wednesday and Friday, so I could not get the chance to take a class. This is the first class, and I have 69 number of students till now joined, and it is almost 12:10. So I can start today's lecture. Today is the introductory lecture. In that, let me introduce about somebody has written something. Wait, so many students did not join and now send the request to join. Wait. Okay. So let me upload the file. It is not showing properly. Browse my computer. Can you see the slides properly? Not grid. I want this. Is the slide clear to you?
Yes, ma'am, the slide is clear.
And these written parts? This is very small, in fact. Just a moment. Today is the first class now, so it takes some problem. Do you find the slides are very small?
No, ma'am, they are visible clearly.
Clear, no? But in my screen, it is coming very small. Anyway, let us start our class. This is the what I want to say is that chemical reaction in engineering can be divided into two basic parts. One is the homogeneous reaction engineering, another one is heterogeneous reaction engineering. So I'll teach the heterogeneous part. The heterogeneous means, you know, which is the phases are different. I'll teach that reaction engineering where more than one phase is included. So the course contents are actually this heterogeneous part is the catalysts mostly, and the reaction engineering, which involves the catalysis and different reactions which occurs with the help of catalysts, and the catalyst mostly remain in the other phase than the reaction medium. Is the reaction engineering, which is heterogeneous reaction engineering. And here the course contents are basically catalysis and catalytic reactions. What is catalysis and what are the catalytic reactions? Then under this, what are the steps involved in the catalytic reactions, and synthesizing the rate law. Hello, can you see the slides?
Yes, ma'am.
Suddenly, yes, it has come now. Some interruption is occurring. Okay, synthesizing the rate law and the mechanism of the reaction and the rate limiting steps. These are under the catalytic reactions. And on the if we talk about the chemical reactions which are catalytic reactions, in that we will study the effect of external resistance to mass transfer on heterogeneous reactions. And next you will be the diffusion and reaction in a catalyst pellet. In that we'll study the effect of internal diffusion to mass transfer, and also effect of before that it was effect of external resistance to mass transfer in heterogeneous reaction, and after that internal diffusional resistance to mass transfer on the reaction. And fourth phase of study will be the solid catalysts and their characterization. Now, these are the books you can follow. These obviously are very well-known books. Chemical Reaction Engineering by Octave Levenspiel. Elements of Chemical Reaction Engineering by H. Scott Fogler. And Chemical Engineering Kinetics by James Smith. All these books are very well-known books, and students have to, all these are UG level good books. All these authors are very famous, and you know this Scott Fogler, he expired some days before 21st August. He was a very renowned professor of chemical engineering in University of Michigan for more than 50 years, from 1965. Anyway, chalo. Next one is the catalysis and catalytic reactions. So here, what will be our objective? We'll study what is the definition of the catalyst and the description of its properties. We'll study the characterization of the catalyst. All these we'll study step by step, although we may not follow this order all the time, because we need to know something before than the previous one. To describe the steps of a catalytic reaction and apply the concept of rate limiting step to derive a rate law. We have to derive a rate law, that is called the modeling of the chemical reaction. For that, we have to know the rate limiting step, and then that knowledge we have to apply for derivation of a chemical reaction rate law. To develop a rate law and determine the rate law parameters from a set of gas-solid reaction rate data, we'll take the example of gas solid reaction. Here the gas will be the reactant gases. Say we have two reactants A and B, which will produce a product C. So A plus B to C. This is the reaction, and the reaction will happen at the gas phase. A and B both are in the gaseous form, maybe at high temperature, so they are in the gaseous or vapor state, and the reaction will occur on the solid catalytic surface. So there are two phases. One is gas phase, another one is solid phase. So this is a two-phasic reaction. So it is a heterogeneous reaction. So we'll take the example of a gas-solid reaction. You may also take a liquid-solid reaction where the reactants may be in the liquid form, and solid is the catalyst. So, and that is the heterogeneous reaction, and we'll derive the rate law for this heterogeneous reaction. And from the reaction rate data, whenever we'll do the experiment in the laboratory, then what will happen when we start the reaction, then as the time goes, the reaction progresses. So say we have taken 1 mole of reactant A and 1 mole of reactant B, which may give us 1 mole of reactant C. In that, whenever we start the reaction, say we have taken the stoichiometric amount A and B, 1 mole A and 1 mole B. After say 1 hour of reaction, we don't expect that 1 mole of A and 1 mole of B will retain. It will be decreasing and producing C. Continuously 1 mole of A and 1 mole of B are reacting and producing C. Okay, so we can take the small liquid samples from the reactor, liquid or whatever, small reaction medium amount, say 1 ml of the reaction sample from the reactor, and analyze it to see how much amount of A and B are remaining in the reaction, and how much amount of C is already formed. In that, we can collect, this way we can collect the reaction data. That means say at 0 hour sample, that means just when the reaction has been started, we can say that we have 1 mole of A and 1 mole of B and 0 mole of C. And after 1 hour, we may see, after analyzing the sample which we have taken from the reactor, we have seen say 0.75 mole of A and 0.65 mole of B are remaining, and some 0.7 mole of C has been formed, until the equilibrium is coming. Equilibrium is such a state when there is no overall progress of the reaction, but it is a dynamic state where always some amount of A and B are converted into C, and at the same time C is breaking down to form A and B. So always there is some forward reaction towards making C, and always at the same time some reverse reaction which forms A and B from C. When equilibrium sets in, what happens? Net amount of change of A and B and net amount of change of C remain constant. Okay, but always there is a change in A and B as well as C. So say at equilibrium, we have seen some 90% C has been formed, and after that there is no C formed. for a long period of time. We have waited for 1 hour, 2 hour, but total amount of C remains constant, that is 90%. So we can say at 90% equilibrium sets in, there is no net formation of C anymore, and there is no net reaction of A and B anymore, but always there is some A and B reacting together to form C, and C is breaking down to form A and B, but net amount of A, B and C remain the same. This state is called the equilibrium, but it is a dynamic state. So if we go on collecting the sample from the reactor and analyze that, we can see that at a certain mole of A and certain mole of B and always also certain mole of C, there is no net change in the moles of A, B and C. Even after waiting for a long period of time. So we can say that this is the state of equilibrium and there is no net progress of the reaction. And here we can say the rate of forward reaction and rate of reverse reaction are the same. They are not altering, they are not changing at all. And last one is to describe the catalyst deactivation. If we say, if we use, we have brought one, say you have brought one T-shirt from market. You are very happy. You are always wearing that T-shirt. And after using the T-shirt for a sufficient number of days, you will see it does not look as it was when it was in the new condition. So obviously by using continuous using it is losing its look. Or you may say its button is coming out because you have used it so many days. This way, that means its activity is lost. It's rather you can say its look is lost, or its usability is lost. This way, whenever we use a catalyst for sufficient time in a reaction, we'll see the catalyst lost its activity. At the very first time when catalyst was fresh and we use that catalyst in the reaction, it is the reaction you can say reaction conversion was very fast. Conversion was very fast and we get the equilibrium very quickly. But as we go on increasing the number of hours or time, as we go on increasing the time, you can see that we don't get that amount of conversion within that time. And even sometimes we will see that it is not possible to wait for such a long period of time to get that 90% conversion. It is not economical at all. So what happens? We can say that catalyst lost its activity. So one time will come when we have to discard that catalyst, because we are not getting economical conversion, economical condition to get that amount of product. Then we can say the catalyst is deactivated. And obviously it is not that after some time we have to throw the catalyst out. We may regain the catalytic activity at least to some good percentage if we do some if we do some, you can say, deactivation work on that catalyst, so that catalyst deactivity, catalyst can regain its activity at least to some extent, and we can reuse that catalyst in the reaction to get a favorable economical condition. Now, if you look at this picture, you see hydrogen and oxygen. It is a very simple reaction. Hydrogen plus oxygen is giving us water. H2 plus O2 is giving us H2O. And without the catalyst, on the upper part you see it is going by the by one route, that is that arrowed route. It is going through that route, and with catalyst it is going through some another route. So what is the advantage of using the catalyst to take the reaction in other route? Because if you see the right hand side picture, here you see here it is the energy, the y-axis, and x-axis is reaction coordinate. My slides are so small, it is not clear. Anyway, reaction coordinate or reaction pathway, the x-axis. Every compound or every element has a definite amount of energy. So if we start, this is the energy of the reactants H2 and O2. We have to put some energy to them to get the reaction happen. At this stage, this is called the where a catalyst, where the reactants form a transition state, where a transition complex is formed, and that complex breaks down to form the product. So this is the pathway, reaction pathway, where through which this say two reactants, hydrogen and oxygen, are going and forming the transition complex, and then this it loses the energy and makes a stabilized product. So you see this this change in energy, the extent of energy required to make the transition state, make the transition complex, is high without the catalyst. Now, if we use the catalyst, this energy level, this amount of energy needed to make the transition state decreases. Catalyst brings down the amount of energy needed to make the product, and then it makes the product. So the pathway is different. Catalytic reaction, the same reaction with catalyst and without catalyst, the required energy energies are different. This energy is called activation energy. This the two reactants has to be given some amount of energy to make the transition complex, or to bring them up to the transition level, and then after that the product is formed. So this is called transition in this is called activation energy, and without catalyst the activation energy requirement is much more than with catalyst. So catalyst is a reagent which either accelerate or retard a chemical reaction without being consumed or converted. Actually, you know, ultimately at the end of the reaction, we should get the catalyst as it was in the previous state, as it was in the starting of the reaction. But within the reaction, obviously, catalyst will its structure or its electronic structure may get changed because of different reasons that I'll come later. And catalyst takes part in making the transition complex. When transition complex breaks down, then we get the original catalyst and product. And it changes the reaction rate by promoting a different molecular pathway but cannot affect equilibrium. Equilibrium will remain the same whether you will get the equilibrium faster or slower. It lowers the activation energy of a reaction that I have already said. Now, catalysts are of two types. One is homogeneous catalyst, another one is heterogeneous catalyst. Homogeneous catalyst, you can understand from the name that what is that? It remains in the same phase as the reaction medium. Reaction medium is the mixture of reactants, that is reaction medium, and as reaction proceeds, reaction medium is the mixture of reactants and products. And if we use the homogeneous catalyst, that will also get mixed up with the reaction medium. So homogeneous catalysts, these are soluble to one of the reactants. One of the homogeneous reaction is that when the reaction occurs in a single phase. The examples of homogeneous catalysts are these HCl or H2SO4 used as catalyst in liquid phase, Friedel-Crafts alkylation reaction. Friedel-Crafts is the name of the scientist. This is the alkylation reaction, means the addition of alkyl group to a molecule. Alkyl groups are CH3 molecules, C2H5 molecule, or C3H8 molecules. These are the alkyl groups or bigger molecules. Addition of these molecules to another molecule, that is called the alkylation reaction. And Friedel-Crafts invented this reaction, so the name goes behind him. HCl or H2SO4, these are used as the homogeneous catalyst in the liquid phase. The catalyst is soluble in reaction medium. This is the example of reaction. This is alkylation of benzene, C6H6 to C6H5CH3. Here it is toluene, benzene to toluene. Here CH3 group addition happened in the benzene ring. So obviously it is an alkylation reaction which makes the toluene from benzene. And in this type of reaction, HCl and H2SO4, these are the liquid homogeneous catalysts. Heterogeneous catalysts are those the catalyst remains in separate phase to the reaction medium. As I have said, if it is a solid, it is solid catalyst. Usually the catalysts are solid. Solid catalysts are mainly heterogeneous catalysts because reactants cannot be solid, and in the solid phase no reaction happens. Platinum on alumina used in the dehydrogenation of cyclohexane to produce benzene. This is one of the reactants. This is the cyclohexane to benzene. This is the reaction C6H12 to C6H6. This is the reaction in which platinum on alumina, alumina means Al2O3, aluminium oxide. If platinum is deposited on aluminium oxide, this is a solid catalyst which is used in this reaction. dehydrogenation. Hydrogen is coming out, 6 molecules of hydrogen. No, sorry, 3 molecules of hydrogen, C6H12 to C6H6 plus 3H2. So this is the reaction. This is the example of one heterogeneous reaction. Heterogeneous catalysis. Heterogeneous catalysts are more common because the homogeneous catalysts, you can understand that homogeneous catalysts remain in the same phase as the reaction medium. So after the reaction, we cannot recover the catalyst from the reaction medium. It remains with the reaction medium, and sometimes, in many times, it is difficult to separate the catalyst from the reaction medium. Say, we have got good amount of product, some 99% product. So product is almost pure. But as catalyst is mixed with the product, it is highly uneconomical for the product to obtain in a pure state. Because sometimes this separation process is associated with the large cost. So homogeneous catalysis in most of the industrial processes are not desirable, not favorable at all. So advantages of heterogeneous catalysis are like simple and complete separation of the solid catalyst from reaction medium. As you can understand that as it is, say we are using solid catalyst, then what happens after the reaction, we can separate the solids by filtration or centrifugation or whatever, and almost we can make the reaction medium free of the solid catalyst. Solid catalysts remain in the form of say small particles, or in some shapes, say beads or noodle shape. So it is easier to separate the heterogeneous solid catalyst from the reaction medium. So cost of separation is very low. So as a whole, this makes the whole reaction process highly cost effective. Now, separation of catalyst makes the process economical as no wastage of valuable catalyst. As in the homogeneous reaction, we have seen that catalyst is wasted and we have to use new catalyst for the next batch of reaction. Here we can reuse the catalyst several times until the catalyst loses its activity. Separation makes the reuse of the catalyst possible. In this part of study, only heterogeneous catalysts will be considered. We will consider the heterogeneous catalyst only. We will not go for the homogeneous one. What are the heterogeneous catalysts? There are different types of heterogeneous catalysts. I am just showing some examples and some broad classifications. One is supported catalyst. Supported catalyst means you understand that catalyst is supported on some support. It is on some support. Minute particles of the active catalyst are dispersed on a less active support. Actually these slides are so small. Supported catalyst, minute particles of the active catalyst are dispersed on a less active support. Say we have a inert support. Support does not have the catalytic activity. Support does not take part in catalytic reaction, but some active catalytic molecules or active catalytic elements or compounds are dispersed on that inactive support or inert support, so that what happens, say we need, like you have seen just now, I talked about the platinum on alumina catalyst. Now platinum is a very costly metal. We cannot use platinum as such in the reaction. And so if we want to make the volume of the catalyst higher, so if for the sake of the recovery of the catalyst, then we have to disperse the platinum on a support which is having some area, which is having some volume, so that after the reaction is over, we can recover the catalyst. It has some volume. 1% or 0.5% platinum on alumina, say we are using 5 gram or 10 gram of say 10 gram of alumina, on which 1% of platinum is dispersed. So you can understand how small amount of platinum is required for the reaction to happen. Catalyst is always that very small amount is required. So if we use that much small gram or milligram of platinum as such in the catalyst, it is highly uneconomical or highly, you can say, it is very tough to recover that small amount of platinum after the reaction. So if we disperse platinum on alumina, 10 gram of alumina, it will be much easier to recover that 10 gram of alumina along with the platinum dispersed on it. So it is required to disperse the costly material on an inert support. Minute particles of active catalysts are dispersed on a less active support. Active particles are mostly metal. It is very difficult to see it. Mostly metals, metal alloy particles. Example, platinum on alumina for reforming reaction, V2O5, vanadium pentoxide on silica for sulfur dioxide oxidation. The sulfur dioxide oxidation actually to form the sulfuric acid, SO3, and then SO3 to H2SO4, used for sulfuric acid preparation. Another type of catalyst is unsupported catalyst. These catalysts can be used in a bulk. This does not need to be used in a very small amount. So no support is required for this type of catalyst. The material is as a whole a catalyst. They act as a whole a catalyst, and they can be used in a bulk amount with similar activity throughout its area. But in the supported catalyst, you see, you will not get similar activity throughout the catalyst, because that 10 gram of alumina which we are using, on that only 1% platinum is dispersed, and the platinum, where the platinum molecules are dispersed, where the platinum molecules are situated on the surface of the alumina, those points are the catalytic points. But for unsupported catalyst, the whole area is the catalyst. Example, silica alumina in dehydrogenation reaction for butadiene preparation. Another type of catalyst is porous catalyst. Porous catalyst means these catalysts, these solid catalysts are having very small pores. And those pores are interconnected to each other. It makes a type of capillary mesh. The interconnecting capillary, very thin pores. And as those catalysts are having so many pores, are interconnected pores, so you can understand that these catalysts are having very high surface area, because the area is not the outer area of the bulk catalyst, it is the inner area also. That means pore area also. Because the molecules can go inside the pore and react. So porous catalysts are having that advantage, that they are having a higher surface area, much higher surface area than non-porous catalysts. The catalyst that has a large area resulting from its pores. I am not going through these lines, because for me these lines are so small I cannot read it. So I'll just tell you what is that. I'll only read the examples. The example is ranitidine. Ranitidine, you know, ranitidine is the catalyst which is used for to prepare the hydrogenated vegetable fat. Previously, if you have heard the name dalda or banaspati, those are the hydrogenated vegetable fat. So these are used for hydrogenation of the vegetable oils and fats. Ranitidine is having very high surface area. 1 gram ranitidine is having 1200 meter square surface area. Can you imagine 1200 meter square means how much amount of surface area it is? It is more than a big football ground. And this much surface area is there for the 1 gram of ranitidine. Another one is iron in ammonia synthesis. Here also the iron is a very porous iron. Molecular sieves, pore structure is such that they allow some molecules and prevent others to enter into the pores of the catalyst. The name molecular sieve has come from the from this action, that they act as a sieve. They act as a sieve and molecular sieve. That means they allow some of the molecules to enter into their pores and react on the inner area of the pore, inner area of the catalyst, and it does not allow other molecules to enter. Say, because these are having such dimension of the pore, that means the diameter of the pore is such that the smaller molecules can enter into the pore surface, but bigger molecules are restricted. Bigger molecules cannot go inside. So this way, these catalysts act as a molecular sieve. So depending on the size of the pore they have, they can allow some of the molecules to enter and react. You see that these porous molecules, porous catalysts are having much more surface area inside the pores than the outer surface. Outer surface is much smaller, outer surface area is much smaller than the pore surface area, inside surface area. So most of the reaction occurs within the pores. So if this restriction is there, that most of the larger molecules will be restricted at the pore mouth, and the molecules which are smaller and have the dimension lesser than the diameter of the pores can enter into the pore, then they will only react. So here we can sieve the molecules, we can cut down the reaction, or we can cut down the some of the unwanted reactions to happen. So these are called molecular sieves. The examples are certain clays and zeolites. Zeolites are the uh, synthetic or man-made catalysts. And clays are different clays like bentonite, kaolinite, uh, montmorillonite. These are the natural clays which also act as the porous catalyst. And zeolites are more structured and more, you can say, ordered molecules, repetitive molecules joined together, and those are more ordered structure. So these are synthetic catalysts. These are selective catalysts. There is a selection. Where is the next slide? Now, here I want to say about the stages of the of a gas phasic solid catalytic reaction. No, after this one, sorry, this is the slide. I just skipped this slide before. Heterogeneous catalytic reaction occurs at fluid-solid interface. We are having a solid catalyst in the reaction medium, and fluid, either liquid or vapor or gases, gaseous reactants, are flowing around the solid catalyst. And reaction happens at that fluid solid interface, at the where the site where the fluid is coming in contact with the solid catalyst surface. Reaction happens there. Hence, a large interfacial area can be helpful or be essential for attaining a significant reaction rate. So if we have a catalyst which is having very large surface area, then what will happen? More number of molecules of the reactants can access that solid catalyst. So it is highly desirable that solid catalyst should have high surface area, so that it can take more number of molecules of the reactants on its surface for the reaction to happen. A porous catalyst has larger surface area resulting from its pore than a non-porous catalyst. I already said that much more amount of surface area resides in the pore, within the pore, compared to the external surface. So a porous catalyst is having high surface area. Ranitidine has surface area up to 1200 meter square per gram. Not all catalysts need the extended surface provided by a porous structure. Some are sufficiently active. So it is not that all the catalysts, actually for making high surface area catalyst, we need some more operations, or we need it involves more cost. In many times, many places. So it is not always true that if we go on increasing the surface area, we'll get more activity. Sometimes non-porous or solid catalysts are so active that a small surface area is sufficient to produce a sufficient amount of the product. Most of the catalysts do not maintain the activity at the same level for indefinite period of time because they get deactivated as the reaction progresses. They get deactivated either slowly or rapidly. It depends on the type of the reaction. It depends on the structure of the catalyst. So whether the catalyst will get deactivated sooner or not that rapid or slowly, it depends on the nature of the catalyst and the reaction, and also the reaction condition. What is the temperature? What is the pressure? Deactivation may be caused by aging phenomenon. Aging means as we like you are very young and I'm old. So because I have passed so many number of years than you, so by aging, the deactivation occurs, such as gradual change of surface crystal structure or deposition of foreign material on the active portions of the catalyst. So on the catalyst surface, some parts are highly active. And if those parts get deactivated, the whole catalyst becomes deactivated. This is 1 o'clock. Can I take another 5 minutes time?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are you enjoying the class? I do not understand.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, gas phase solid catalytic reaction. Look, what I said till now is the catalytic reactions, how catalysts act, all those things. But how the reactions occur on the gas, on the solid catalyst surface, that I did not say till now. Let us take the example of gas phase solid catalytic reaction, which involves several steps. And before that, let me tell you that before the reaction occurs, those reactant molecules has to come in contact with the solid catalyst surface, where they first get adsorbed, not absorbed. They first get adsorbed. Adsorption is a surface phenomena. On the surface, they get attached. And this attachment is called adsorption, which may be of two types. One is physical adsorption, another one is chemical adsorption. You know this because you have read it in your class 12. Physical adsorption is that the force of attraction between the gas molecules and solid catalyst surface that is weak. The attachment is weak. The force of attraction between the solid catalyst surface molecule and the reactant molecule is very feeble. Either of van der Waals types of attraction, this is very weak attraction, between a permanent dipole by dipole interaction, or an induced dipole or neutral atom or molecule. Here the heat of adsorption is small, that is after adsorption, adsorption is an endothermic process. It is 1 to 15 kilocalorie per gram mole. So this is very small. Chemical adsorption is force of attraction is strong. The reactant atoms or molecules are bound to the surface atoms of the catalyst by valence bond type force. If a valence bond is formed, you can understand it is a strong bond. Either it is electronic bond or covalent bond. The bond is strong, it is valence bond. So chemical adsorption goes through the valence bond type force. Chemical adsorption is required for the reactants to perform a chemical reaction. So whenever a chemical reaction will occur, a product is formed from the reactant, you will be sure that here on the solid catalyst surface, chemical adsorption occurred at the beginning before the reaction occurs. Due to chemical adsorption, the electronic structure of the reactant molecules are disturbed significantly, making them extremely reactive. After the adsorption on the solid catalyst surface, the structure of the molecules become distorted, not as it was when it was not in the adsorbed state. So the structure is distorted, and whenever the structure is distorted, its potential energy is disturbed. So obviously, all the molecules want to come into the highest potential energy state. It want to react and then produce a product, making them extremely reactive. Heat of adsorption is in similar magnitude to the heat of reaction. It is high, that is 10 to 100 kilocalorie per gram mole. The reaction is not catalyzed by the entire solid surface of the catalyst. Some part of the solid surface of the catalyst are active as a catalyst, not all the part. Adsorption of reactant molecules occurs on specific active centers or sites on the catalyst surface. So those parts or those points on the catalyst surface which are active, those can take the reactant molecules to get adsorbed on them and produce the product. The active centers of the surface are originated from like surface irregularities, some crystal defects, some irregular surface. Those are the active centers. Dislocations of the solid catalyst surface, edges of crystals, those are high energy sites actually. Cracks along grain boundaries, etc. Those points are making the active centers of the catalyst. So active centers on the catalyst surface are able to make strong bonds with the reactant molecules and stabilize them. These strong bonds are the adsorption bonds, and this way they produce more energy to the reactant molecules, bringing them to the transition state. This bond formation on the catalyst surface and making the molecules distorted makes the molecule at a high energy transition state. This is the transition state where the this energy is needed. The parameter to quantify catalytic activity, these are turnover frequency. From the turnover frequency, this means number of molecules reacting per active sites per second at the condition of the experiment. More the number of molecules reacts on the active sites, more is the activity of the catalyst per second. So turnover frequency is the term which denotes the catalytic activity. Dispersion D of the catalyst is what? The fraction of the metal ions present on the surface of the catalyst. That means if it is say platinum on alumina, so what is the fraction of metal ions present on the surface of the catalyst? Out of 1% platinum, say 0.5% is present on the surface. So dispersion of the catalyst is 0.5. Okay, I have taken 5 minutes already. I am stopping here. So we'll start on the next day. 2 slides are remaining more. I'll start on the next day from them there. And after that, I'll upload the PDF of this note in your notes section, class notes section, and you can read that. Okay. So for today it is all.
Ma'am, please accept some requests. Some requests haven't been accepted for the MS team.
For
For the MS team, I haven't been in channel. Like I can't access the channel.
channel. No, I'll not put in the channel. Okay,
No.
it is.
I'm telling you to accept the link. Like I have applied for the group. I'm not in group right now. No, I'm not in the MS team right now. Please accept that request. I did send to you
You are
right.
not.
Yeah, I didn't
Not
get
in
accepted.
MS team. Then
Yeah,
how will you? How
we
you
can.
have? You are present in the class. It is running in the MS team
Like you can
through
share the.
browser.
Yeah. I'm running through the browser only.
Okay, Achal Kumar.
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, I'll. How it is possible? I send everyone. Okay, let me try. I am also not very conversant with this MS team. Anyway, I'll try. Achal Kumar, what is your roll number?
19CH 3002.
3002.
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, let me check it.
Ma'am, I have also sent you the request, Adrija 19CH 10007.
Okay, you have. Acha, Achal, why didn't you send me the request like Adrija? Let me check it. What request she has sent me? Wait. Utkarsh and 7 others. I have accepted the request of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 students' request just before the class. After that, let me see this. Manage team. You send me the request, okay? Then I'll do it. Add member. Okay, I can do the add member thing, no? Wait. Achal Kumar. Your ID is AC